All
Mm.
right, welcome to another Grit and Grime basketball podcast. I'm your host, as always, David Sagoe, here with the legs, the brain, I'm trying to
Thanks.
think of all the different pieces I can give you that don't join each other. The,
Oh, okay.
the hips of the team,
Yeah, why not?
the
Uh,
shoulders.
the broken knee, the messed up knee of the team. Oh,
um,
the
Thomas
ancient one.
Arnal,
The ancient one. That's how you call me.
wise.
Yeah, the wise one. Good evening, everyone, or good morning, whenever you're listening to this. Hello.
Yes. So we are sponsored by, as always, dateamericanwomen.com. They have a member base of over 30,000 members, and you can get advice on how to use the site best on the website dateamericanwomen.com, our sponsors. So, big week news-wise
Yay.
in the NBA this week. We had a not so quiet trade deadline, which was refreshing. I wasn't sure we were going to see much action. And then immediately following that, almost all of the big names that didn't get traded ended up getting bought out.
Yay.
So we wanted to start with the buyouts and then sort of go backwards through time into the trades. The most recent buyout happened to be Andre Drummond being bought out by the Cleveland Cavaliers and ending up signing with the Lakers. Before that, we had LaMarcus Aldridge being bought out and signing with the Nets. And before that, we had Blake Griffin being bought out and signing with the Nets also. But you had something interesting to say about the whole system and what it means to the league.
So yeah, no, but I was reading a couple articles that are quite interesting about the entire buyout system, which is now starting to really piss off smaller market teams, right? And especially their GMs and owners, because it is putting those smaller market teams as a certain disadvantage when trying to get those big names players, those franchise players in. So there was an interesting article, I think that was on si.com, where they interviewed a bunch of smaller markets GMs saying, you know, under the cover of quietness, of darkness, you know, no names were revealed. But they were saying basically that the buyout market is now another it's another free agency market where obviously the prices are much lower. And the bidding is almost non-existent because for most of these players, they do end up on the team they want to play for such a small amount. So for those who don't know what the buyout system is, it's just basically, but it's most likely to be an older player, right? A more experienced, a vet player that is being paid quite generously. You know, it's got a big contract. So, for example, the names we were talking about now, you've got Blake Griffin that's on, what was it, 37 mil for this season?
This year,
so yeah. And then 39 next year, and Aldridge is on 24 million next year. Well, this year, sorry. And Drummond was on 28 mil, I think, for this year. It's quite massive figures. So they get benched, they get kicked out of the team because they want out. Obviously, so we were discussing before, those smaller market teams, they have to pay those players big numbers because obviously they're smaller markets and they want to take that step up, and they need to get that big name on the team, you know, the franchise player that will make them maybe a playoff contender. For most often, it wouldn't be a title contender, but it would be somebody that was trying to do something, get in the top 8, right? So you've got to slightly overpay those players if you want them to join, which in turns, because usually you overpay those players, that means you have less money to put towards the rest of the team. So you've got a slightly weaker team around that. So it's a one-team player. And the chances of you taking that step up, sometime, most likely it won't happen. Meaning that after a couple of years, those players that are still owed, 30, 40 mil on the remainder of the contracts, they're starting to get impatient because they're getting old and they want that ring. So, example, Aldridge or Griffin, But the thing is, they're getting older and their bodies maybe not in the best shape anymore.
Yeah.
You know, the knees are gone, the ankles are busted.
Mm.
So you can't go through a trade. You can't just request a trade because your contract's so big. You're not going to get anyone back, or you're not going to interest any other franchise with. You know, if I tell you, you know, look at just Griffin. You know, it's like the guy was just a shadow of himself a couple of weeks ago. Like if I tell you, you know, yeah, you can get him. You know, it's 36 this season, 39 next season. It's like he's got no legs left. You know, you're not going to get anyone back for that.
Yeah.
So the other way of going with a trade is just to buy out the remainder of the contract. So you do a deal, and obviously, like we've seen, what was the figure for Griffin? I think, what did you say? He had to give up 13.3 mil. I think that's what we said.
He gave that back.
So I don't think players usually get the 100% of what's owed to them. I don't think that's usually the case, but they get a quite a large chunk of what's remaining.
Yeah, well, it depends, right? Because as you said, these contracts are huge contracts, and normally these types of figures don't get bought out, right? You just have to wait until the contract runs out, and that's the only way to get rid of it if you can't trade it. That's what makes this year the exception, where these huge sums of money were exchanged in a buyout, whereas someone like, I don't know, like a Markieff Morris who was bought out last year was earning a single digit of millions on his contract. So that kind of thing, sure, you just buy the player out and then they can go and play somewhere else, and it's not, you're not losing some huge player to your rotation. You're just losing a role player who has a role player's salary. In this case, these three guys were all starters.
Yeah, they were all starters, and they were big names. They were all stars. You know, they carry something with their names. You know, if like you say, Markieff Morris, it's like, if you're an NBA fan, you know who of him. You know, his, you know, of his twin brother, and okay, the fan, but like to the greater. You know, the masses basketball, you know, they're nobody's, again, air quotes, but when you talk Griffin, I'm sure he's quite a well-known figure in the US, so it's not you know, carries a weight around him. But I think the other complaint was that so obviously they get bought out, right, and then they're free to sign for another team. Now the knee-jerk reaction I had was like, oh, you know, some like Aldridge signing for the Nets or Griffin signing for the Nets, you're like, oh God, you know, he's ring chasing. Which again, you think about it for a minute and you're like, okay, you're 35, 36. You got no rings. You've got a bunch of all-star selections. You've got, you know, you carried your team all through those years. And of course, if you were in their shoes, you'll be doing the same. You want that ring. Why not? You know, you're not going to play 35 minutes anymore. You're going to add 15, 20 minutes maybe. You're going to help out and doing different things. And that's fine. In terms of being a player, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, the funny thing is, because obviously they go into those big teams, they go to the Lakers, they go to the Nets now, they go to bigger markets, but they get paid peanuts because obviously they're happy to take a pay cut. So basically you're getting that player in now for nothing. So, you know, what was it? What did you say? 800,000 for Drummond? Or Aldridge?
If you round up the veteran minimum, once you play X number of years, is about 800K for the rest of the year.
It's basically nothing for them, for the Lakers, for those teams. And whereas, you know, you look at other smaller markets, like the Nuggets had to trade a bunch of players to get Aaron Gordon. The Bucks had to trade a bunch of players for PG Tucker. The Heat for Oladipo, they had to get a bunch of players out. Who else? The Sixers, George Hill. That was a multiple player trade. So they had to make sacrifice. Like smaller market teams have to give up a bunch of players to bring that one guy that may not be a massive player anyway. But that's where I think the contradiction or the thing that's pissing everybody off in the smaller markets is this. It's like, look, we've got to give up this much to get somebody who's maybe not a franchise player or somebody who's quite good.
Yeah.
You guys just do your little deal and then you just wait, exactly, and then bang, that guy comes in.
Yeah.
And that, like we were saying before we started recording, like no system is perfect, but it's true that if you look at it this way, and I think it bothered no one before that, like, because as your point was very valid, which is like it was smaller names. I think the fact that we've had those three players back to back almost.
Well, it's the same window, isn't it? It's the same.
Yeah, it's the same window.
Buyout market. Your buyout market. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, you're like, okay, fine. You just what's happening. I think it's. I mean, like I said, the fact that those players want to join forces and they want to get that ring, and the teams are doing it, they're not breaking any laws, like Steve Nash said. We know that it's not against the law, like it's against any rules. So why would they not do it?
Mm-hmm.
It is fine. It is fine. And there's nothing. The thing is, there's nothing for the smaller market teams to sort of defend themselves against it. If they say no to the player that's with that big contract, and that guy is saying, okay, well, I want out, and it's like, okay, we can't do a trade because nobody wants you, and we don't want to buy you out because it's too expensive. Well, then the agents kicking in and just going, well, if you don't buy out the guy, if you don't put in an effort to sort of sort out the situation, well, I'm not going to get my guys, any players I've got under my wing, I'm not going to get them to talk to you guys, So sort of gun to the head situation where you're just thinking.
Yeah, there is the other side of it is the players have to buy in, ironically, pun not intended.
Yeah.
Those players that we've just mentioned have, like, they gave back money. Right, we said Aldridge gave back 13 million, Blake Griffin gave back 7, and they are now minimum players, and you risk not getting more than the minimum in the future once you accept a minimum contract, right? In a lot of ways, that reduces your value. So where we have said all three of them were starters, and Drummond isn't that old. Like, we can talk about the others.
How old is Drummond?
He's like 28 or something, 29.
I'll look it up, but carry on. Yes.
Yeah, we can. As we said, they were starters on their team, so now they've diminished their value in terms of money and diminished their value in terms of role. And I think that is the fact that they've drastically done that for the chance to go and get a ring is why this year is different to past years. On top of the role player.
But Aldridge and Griffin, I mean, they pretty much at the end of their careers anyway.
Yeah.
It's especially Aldridge, where he's 37, 36, 37. So yeah, that's kind of his last shot. So, and I guess he's got enough money, he's made enough money throughout the career to make the sacrifice for the last couple of years to go.
Exactly.
He's not going to make 24 anywhere near that, but maybe get around 8-9 for one more season. That's more than plausible. The only one, I think, the exception would be Drummond. I think he could go back, like he's making an exception for this year, but then he's going to have to get paid wherever he goes next, right?
For sure. But then I bet you he won't get 28 million.
No. But in that sense, you're right. Yeah, you sacrifice. Yeah, you're nowhere near after that.
Yeah, he will get less than that in his next contract, and subsequently for the rest of his career. There is a devaluing in accepting a buyout and going somewhere for the minimum.
You're sort of shooting yourself in the foot, but again,
which doesn't matter when you're 37, but does when you're 27. Yeah.
Drummond is 27, so he'll. Again, there was another player that was talked about when I was listening to
the player I was going to bring up was Kyle Lowry, because he didn't get bought out, right? He's 36, 35, 36. I think he had a birthday this 35.
week.
Yeah. It was his birthday this week. He's turned 35. He was once someone that we thought for sure was going to get traded.
Yeah.
But what clearly happened in the end was that they couldn't get the trade for him the same way they couldn't get the trade for these three guys. But I'm pretty sure he wasn't willing to just bow out of Toronto with a buyout. I'm pretty sure Toronto wasn't willing to buy him out. I think he's owed 34. He's on a $34 million contract this year. So he's just going to play out the rest of the year and then go into free agency at the end of the year. And I think that is the difference. Like in the past, that would have happened with all four of these players.
Yeah.
Whereas the others have accepted the buyout, and the teams have been willing to pay the buyout as well. Because even though they've taken less, we don't know the circumstances of Drummond's buyout, but even though they've taken less, they still got paid a hell of a lot of money just to terminate their contracts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so Lowry was, I think he just turned 35 and he was owed 30 mil this season.
Okay, yeah.
Again, yeah, it's like you're not going to find that anywhere else, but
yeah,
it makes sense. Yeah, I'm just looking at that. Yeah, it was the Lowry one was surprising. I thought he would get traded. I mean, I'm not the biggest Lowry fan, but I guess his contract was more than anyone else was willing to take on. 35 though. 35 start.
Yeah, he's not young. He's still really good.
Dude, I thought you know what? I thought he was 31. Like when he turned 35, I saw it this week and I was like, huh? Dude, he's old. Yeah. It's been there forever.
Yeah, well, he knocked around the league a bit. He was drafted in Memphis. He was behind Mike Conley, and then he moved to the Raptors, and they were meant to blow everything up there. And then they traded Rudy Gay, and the team took off. So he just wasn't a name. He was nowhere near being an all-star at the time. And then all of a sudden, they turned into a great team, and his star took off. And now that's part of why they gave him that contract. It was sort of like a thank you contract, like one last chance to get paid. And then we see what happens from there.
I forgot he was on the Rockets. Absolutely forgot he was there.
Yeah, Rockets too.
3 years. Anyway, interesting. I think my final thought on it is that it's again, people might still be pushing for a change in the system, but I don't know. It's like we said, there's no perfect system. There's always going to be somebody who gets rolled over.
And it will always be the small markets.
And it will always be the small markets. So I don't know if there's a better system to be put in place. Maybe there is. And again, we were saying before is that to me, it's surprising that those figures got bought out because of where we are in terms of, with the entire pandemic and all of that. I thought like teams were really not looking at buying contracts out. It's pretty those figures. I thought everybody was trying to tighten the belt, so to speak, and trying to save as much money as possible. And you see those contracts out and just don't make a move this year. I guess I don't know.
Someone did tighten their belts. You guessed it. Tillman Fertitta.
I'm right.
Governor of the Houston Rockets. They got the Victor Oladipo trade-off for Kelly Olynyk and Avery Bradley, plus a 2022 pick swap. So it's coming up real soon. Although that's basically nothing because they're going to have a worse record than the Heat. So they're not going to swap that pick.
Of course.
Olynyk, I think, is an expiring contract, if I remember rightly.
I believe so, yeah.
And part of me thinks Avery Bradley is on a 1-year deal as well, coming off his stint with the Lakers last year. So essentially, they traded Victor Oladipo for nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
He just traded his contract away, and then they're going to save money this offseason, which was one of the things that we thought might be happening in them taking Oladipo rather than Karis LeVert, who's probably a better player at this point and a younger player for sure.
Yes.
He's an expiring contract. They can cut ties and save money.
The Oladipo deal was quite interesting with the trade. Because there's always a discussion between what a player think he's worth or what the teams he should see. And like I think with Oladipo, as much as I love to watch him play, it's just I think he's still trying to kind of feeding off that 1 year that he was amazing, and he's still trying to ride off that
all NBA.
All NBA's one season there. He's still a very solid player, still a great player to have on your team. Like, you know, he was talked about getting him on the Knicks, and I was like, yeah, I'll take him. But yeah, you see who's getting traded. That's the other thing. Like, apart from the buyouts in this trade deadline, it's like the trades that took place. Some of them I was like, what? You know, like the Fournier one to the Celtics. When I heard it, was like, you know, maybe I'm biased because he's a French guy, and he's still like between 20 and 25 points a game player. Fournier, you know, he's not okay. He's not the greatest player. He's not an average player. He's not a bad player. He's a good player to have on your team. He does everything well, apart from last night where he went 0 for 10 and absolutely killed it. But like, he got traded for Jeff Teague that got waived.
Yeah, and 2 future second round picks. Yeah, it's like, next to nothing.
Like, if you watch the movie Semi Pro with Will Ferrell, and like they trade one guy for a washing machine, that's exactly how. Like, I saw the trade, I went like, damn, that's the guy from Semi Pro. It was like, he's traded for a washing machine.
Another like, one, yeah, that's another one where the Magic were obviously downsizing and offloading some players, and I think they decided they weren't going to weren't going to wait. Yeah, they weren't going to fight it. They weren't going to like haggle and make sure that they got a good deal out of everything they wanted to do. It's like they decided we're getting rid of them.
It's like when the store is about to shut doors, and it's like, you know, you come in at 10 to 11, it's like, okay, you know what, I'll give you 50p for that bag of thing that's supposed to be 250, and then you go, oh, yeah, fine, just take it, go away, you know, I'm about to.
It's like an everything must go sale.
Everything, it was a fire sale. Basically, it was a fire sale, and the Magic, and I really thought, like, what the hell are they doing over there? But actually, it sort of makes sense, and it ended up looking not too bad after it. We'll talk about that in a bit.
So we'll stay with the Magic. We've hit the Fournier deal. They also traded Aaron Gordon to the Nuggets for Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a future first round pick. So at least they got some picks back, some valuable picks back, and RJ Hampton, a young player. Gary Harris has been injury ravaged for the last year or so, or the last 2 seasons. He hasn't been able to stay on the court, but a good defender. And then they also gave up Gary Clark just to match salaries with Aaron Gordon. And then their third deal, blockbuster deal. Yeah. Yes. The Bulls, they traded away this is the wrong deal.
What? The one that
I saw Tyson. I thought this is
no. So the Bulls got Vucevic and Aminu. But then they got rid of Carter Jr. and Porter Jr. Well, Otto Porter and Wendell Carter Jr. and 2 first round picks. Yeah.
So again, they've gotten a couple of picks. A young player, and Otto Porter's another one who people are speculating might get bought out, as is Avery Bradley from the Heat deal to the Rockets. So that's Vucci main, that's Fournier, and that's Eric Gordon, all out of the Magic. So I ask you, Tom.
Yeah, go on. No, I know.
Where do you think they're going to finish with this recent influx of young talent?
Well, where are they now? Hang on, let me pull up so the Magic is now 14th, but the Bulls are now 10th and are on a 4 games losing streak. So give it time. I think your question was like, oh, they're going to overtake the Knicks now. You'll see they'll take your spot. The Knicks are 5th right now, you know, which we're riding high. We're still up there.
Light years ahead.
You
know what? That is actually a decent gap. It's 4 games.
5 games.
My says 4.
Hang on. 4. Sorry. Yes, 4. It's a decent gap. it's gonna be hard to, but the thing is, when you ask the question on the WhatsApp group, and I was like, yeah, it does make sense because it's a big move. Vucevic is a big name. He's
an all-star.
He's an all-star. He's been there for many years, and he's always been reliable and putting up numbers. So it does make sense, and it is one more star that we don't have on the Knicks. It's one big name we don't have. But in terms of I think they're too far back for that trade to make a difference this season. I think next season, with a couple more pieces, if the Knicks don't manage to sign somebody that's like a big name, then it could be a problem for us. I could see the Bulls maybe taking us over, but that hurts. But for this season, I don't know. I think they're too far back. Was it the first 10 teams, right, are doing the play-in, or the
the first 10 are in the play-in, and they're in 10. So it's 10 to 7 are in the play-in.
Yeah, 10 to 7.
And they're in 10th.
So I think they'll definitely be in that. But I don't know, man. It takes time to integrate a player like that, and especially when you who else they moved? They've lost what's his face?
Yeah, they also did the that deal where they brought in Tice.
Yes.
So he'll likely start behind he'll likely come off the bench behind Vucevic. So they acquired Daniel Tice, Javonte Green, and Troy Brown Jr. Celtics, it was a 3-way trade. The Celtics ended up getting Luke Cornett and Mo Wagner.
Yeah.
And then the Wizards got Daniel Gafford and Chandler Hutchison.
Heavy names.
Huge.
But yeah, again, so you've got to integrate 5 players on the Bulls, basically. 5 players on a roster that is 15 deep. It's a third of your roster that is now new. And one of them is a massive name. You've got to integrate that guy in the starting 5. Granted, that's usually probably the easiest bit to get a big name out, because they have, with the experience that those guys have, usually they manage to pick up on new plays and new style of plays, if you will, new coaches' demands. So that usually the integration is usually okay, but getting 5 new players is not a small thing to integrate, especially at this time of the season, and you've got no training, like we were saying. There's no training sessions. There's very few of them.
Yeah, but only a couple of them were getting like minutes in the main rotation from the ones that are left. That is, and only a couple of the ones that have come in will get minutes in the main rotation.
It's still.
It's significant, yeah.
It's still significant that to integrate a couple players still in your rotation and making sure that they understand what's asked of them, and they have to also get used to their new teammates. And so it's a lot to ask to try and play catch up with teams that are now 4 wins ahead, or even to the Celtics, where the Celtics are 3 games ahead of them. It seems to be a bit of a stretch.
I'm gonna have to push you for an answer. Where do they finish?
Where do they finish? I think 10th is where they should be, because I don't like the Pacers are ahead of them, the Heat are ahead of them. I don't see them taking over those 2 teams. So I think 10th is right where they should be.
Okay.
Again, on paper, having Vucevic and what's his face, Levine, it looks sexy.
2 all-stars, just like the Lakers.
Yeah, exactly. They're the Lakers of the East. Now and again, I was listening to the not the starters. God damn it, what else is the No Dunks podcast, and they were saying it was like, what the Bulls is one of those historical franchises, and they need to be higher than that. And I think that's a good steps. I think that the Bulls and the Knicks are sort of having the same sort of revival on different terms, but they're sort of the same thing, where they're historical franchises, but they were literally clown franchises for the last few years. Like disrespected. People are looking at them like jokes of franchise, and others, using different techniques, but they're trying to build on something that's quite solid, and they need to be high up. They need to be in the playoff talks every single season in the East, at least.
Yeah,
and it's good to see the Bulls going back. Getting big players, even though I'm not a fan of the Bulls, but hey.
I want to see big markets.
Big markets. No, but I want to do that. I want them to do well. In a weird, twisted way. But yeah, 10th is where I see them still.
Okay. So we mentioned the Celtics dealings. Where do you see them finishing now that they have Fournier? They've lost Tice.
Yeah.
Um, I think those are the major changes to their roster.
But I think from the Celtics fans, for what I've seen online, they were really aiming for a big guy. They said they really like they needed a big, and then they went and traded away Tice. It
Tice,
makes
yeah.
no sense.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, they brought in Fournier, which is to me is a very solid player. It's a very good player. Again, last night's game was a bit of a blip, but I don't know, man. It feels like they got weaker.
You
Somehow.
think? Well,
Somehow.
the thing about the Fournier deal is he's a good player in the regular season, but in the playoffs he always seems to underperform. I think I heard somewhere that he shoots something like 42% in the playoffs, and that's just not getting it done on any level. But hopefully, being on a team which has other weapons, in the Celtics with Tatum and Brown and Marcus Smart's ability to create and also generate easy buckets off defensive stops, things will be a bit easier for him being a fourth or fifth option, even in the lineup whenever he's on the floor for the Celtics.
And I've watched the highlights of his 0 for 10 game last night, and like every single shot he took that he missed last night, they're all good shots. There was no crazy attempts. They were all shot that he usually would make. So I think it was just a one-off that it's not like that. He'll score. He'll get his 20. He'll get his 20. But I don't know. How many Celtics game have you watched this season? Have you watched any?
Yeah, I've seen a few.
It's a bit weird. It's all or nothing with them this season. It's a bit all over the show. I found, like, compared to the last season and the year before that, very erratic.
Yeah, I think last season there was a much better balance between offense and defense. And this season they've struggled. I mean, they've had Marcus Smart go down. I think watching them play has been tough without Marcus Smart, because he's probably their most creative player at this point. Not only as a ball mover or out of the pick and roll and pick and pop and things like that, but then also generating turnovers and getting out on the break. It seemed like without him in the lineup, they could only take tough shots. So you would see these highlights of Tatum doing crazy dribble moves and Brown knocking down shots with a man in his face, but that's all well and good until all of your shots look like that, and you start to struggle and the offense starts to stagnate. And I think that's why they're playing 500 ball. I mean, right now they're just below that, and you're basically living and dying by the ability of your best players to make tough shots. And that's just not the situation you want to be in the league. What you want to do is leverage those players into making easy shots for everyone else. And then that compromises the defense enough for those players to then take smart shots and good shots. And they just struggled offensively. It's not pretty to watch either.
It's two different teams, very much two different teams, with and without Smart. It's absolutely. I've seen both this season. It's like when Smart was on the court, it's absolutely fine. They should be top 4, top 3 in the East. But without him, it's just they were. I think I've watched 2 or 3 games without Smart, and every time I'm thinking, what's going on? Like, it makes no sense. It's just all over the show. And I think out of those 3 or 4 games I watched, like there were a couple occasions where they lost by 20 or something, and it's not even close. There was no comeback. There was no, not even one thing looking up. It was just straight up garbage. And it's weird. Like, if you would have told us at the start of the season that the Celtics at this stage would be 48%,
be very surprised. Very, very surprised.
Right? And the Hornets are 51. You're like,
Gordon Hayward's a winner, baby.
He gets the money.
Yeah, there's no understating his loss, because they lost him for nothing. He walked out of the door for nothing, and that hurts a team like the Celtics, which had this excellent wing depth. They went from having all of these great wings to all of a sudden having none. And then with the injury to Marcus Smart, and then also the injury to Kemba. Like, Kemba's barely played a solid game this year.
Yeah.
Where he's looked like himself. I know he had a couple of good games against the Clippers, I think, which they managed to win. But he just has not looked like himself, to the point where some Celtics fans I've heard just casually not cutting bait with him as in, just trade him, but they just don't expect him to ever get back to his best, and they don't expect him to be a needle mover for them anymore. They're just sort of like holding the L on that signing.
And that's the thing. I think one day we should have a conversation about him, because his track record is, he was he on the Hornets? Was he was on before? Like, and now he's gone. The Hornets are fourth. It's the Chris Paul in reverse. It's like, oh god. It's interesting. Campbell, the bunch of games I watch with him on the courts, like he always starts well and then just straight up disappears. Like he's just non-existent in the second half for most of those games. So it's again, I don't know if it's because of the injury or
I think it's the injury, but then also he's not. I don't think he's going to age that well as someone that plays defense with pretty much effort only. Like his size isn't going to bother anyone. He's not like a big getter of steals and things like that. So it was impressive when he went to Boston, seeing him expend that much energy on that end. But as he ages, that's going to be more and more difficult to do. So it's a tough one, but we can set a teaser. Hopefully everything goes according to plan. We'll be talking a bit of Celtics next week. But for now, let's see if we can annoy our future guest and say where you think the Boston Celtics will finish.
Dude, because of unlucky for them, the Heat just got better, so they'll definitely fall behind the Heat, who's currently 8th. And I think the level, they've got the same record, right? Yeah. 23 and 24. So I think the Heat is going to overtake the Celtics. But lucky for them, the Pacers didn't get any better. So 8th. It's such a weird thing to say, because I know how talented the Celtics are, and I can't see them getting past the Hawks or the Heat at this stage.
They've simply just lost so much depth. Like, this is a team that used to have Terry Rozier, Tatum, Brown, Irving, Howard, Horford. Like, it was such a deep roster, and one by one, everyone's just left.
It's crazy, and then they really got thinner now again. And I don't know if I don't think Fournier was the guy they had to get this time at this moment. I think they, again, listening to Celtics fans, it's like they needed somebody a big inside. And maybe they get Horford back, because I think he's being bought out as well, right?
Yeah, maybe. It depends on what the relationship is between the but he's not actually being bought out. He's staying there to the end of the season.
Yes.
I think the Thunder decided not to buy him out, which is, again, very interesting that another small market team, I think they're the smallest market in the league,
it's supposed to be
decided not to pay that contract, and his contract is smaller than these ones that we're talking about. But they said they're sitting him out for the rest of the year.
I'm interested. Where do you see the Celtics ending up then? I'm saying 8.
I think I'd agree. I think the Heat managed to string together enough wins to maybe pip them. And then I don't think they'll fall below the Pacers. The Pacers have been, although they have just got LeVert back.
That is true.
I'm not sure if TJ Warren's coming back soon as well. I feel like I've heard something about that.
No, I've not heard anything, but they've got CJ McConnell, so it's fine. Yeah,
I mean, it's really tight in there. I mean, we say they're only one game behind the Hornets in 4th.
Yeah, but the thing is, you see, as we watched the Hornets game the other day, right, on the live stream,
sure,
there's so much potential, and there's a lot of things going for them, for the Hornets. I think I don't know. Every time I watch the Celtics, it feels like they're on almost depressed on the court. You know what I mean? Like because they know they should be better. They know they should be higher up in the standings, but they're not. And it feels like there's like the wind's been taken out of them. There's like there's no joy in that team. And then you watch the Hornets, and it's like, yeah, they're not the best teams. Yeah, they're not, but they're fourth, and they've got that thing going. And like, you've got Bridges dunking all over the show, and you've got they lost not Lonzo, LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
Again, but that could be also something that gets the team to rally around something and say, okay, look, he's gone for until the end of the season, but let's play for him and try to get as high as we can and show people that we can.
Yeah. And I'm actually going to walk back my Boston take. I think they're going to finish higher than that, given how close it is. But yeah, what you're talking about is just the difference in energy, isn't it?
Like energy and team spirits.
Yeah. They are riding higher than they're expected to be, so their energy is up. Right, it's like winning is contagious. It's the same with the Knicks. Same with the Knicks.
Yeah,
the team spirit is high. The energy is up. Even when they lose every time they lose a game, it's like we should have won that game. It's because of this and that, and everything is like everything is positive. Even though like some of the excuses might be negative, everything is positive in the sense that we feel like we've lost a game that we should have won. Whereas with the Celtics, the energy is reversed. They're losing games and they're just like, whenever they lose a game, it's like, we're not good. Or the GM, Danny Ainge, came out and said, oh, like, we're losing games because of me, right? Yeah. Because of the roster makeup, the roster construction. Hearing that as a player, especially if you're like, not one of the big players, it's like,
But that's the thing. You look at the language that's being used. It's that you look at the way, again, Hornets and Knicks. It's like, all right, we lost that one. The Knicks will bitch about the refereeing and stuff like that, which is fine. It happens. It happens. It doesn't. There's no, there's no point in wasting time talking about that. But if you look at the Knicks and the Hornets, every time they took an L, the next game they won it, or they were super close to winning it. And there's that positive thing. It's just like, okay, we lost that one. Let's go into the next one. Let's try and get a W there. The Celtics has always been, we lost that one. Damn, it's my fault. Then it's his fault. No, it's your fault. We're lacking this, lacking that. And it's that, it's the downward spiral of things. Like it's negative talk around there. Whereas the other two teams are very positive. Even in defeat, they're trying to bring up the positives and trying to move on from that. It's very interesting to watch right now.
Yeah, but I'm always a believer that talent wins out. So I'm actually going to walk back my talk of 8th, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that either the Knicks or the Hornets slide down. So I think I'm going to go. Or maybe
you want to say 5th?
I want to say 6th.
Okay.
I want to say 6th.
And again, I say 8th, but like I can see them being 6 also. Like between 6, 7, 8, I think
it's so close. Yeah,
it's so close that it almost makes no difference, and it's so weird this year. It's just there's a clear gap between the top 3 and the rest, and then from 4th to all the way to even to the Cavs with 17 wins. It's like. You look at it and you go, there's still a chance. It's only 2. It's only
not for
2
the Cavs, does it not?
Well, not the Cavs. Okay, maybe the Wizards. The Wizards are 2 games behind the Bulls, right?
Yeah.
The Raptors the same. Raptors is 2 games behind the Bulls. So it's all so close.
Yeah. Man, I can't believe the Raptors are down there again.
It's crazy.
So staying east.
Yeah.
Let's play. Where do you think the Heat have made the Oladipo trade? We just mentioned them already. So where do we think they end in that same group of teams?
And the Heat's got they got Bjelica,
yep,
Oladipo, and there's a third one. Trevor Ariza.
Yes, yeah.
The most traded man in the history of the NBA.
It feels like that.
No, it's not. It's not actually.
It's a fact.
He got traded 11 times. So he's the most traded player in the NBA ever.
That's NBA champion Trevor Ariza. 2009.
I liked him. I always used to pick him in 2K. Always. Like I need a win guy. a wing guy, I'll go for him.
Mm.
The Heat's got it, and especially now that they're bringing back. I mean, all of the players are getting back to a better level of health.
Mm.
And having had no break between the two seasons, it was bound to happen. Like they're 8th right now, but they're not. This should be top 3.
Right.
So I think they might get a run. They might do a run, go on a little run there. I want to say they'll finish 4th
because I was thinking the same, 4th or 5th.
I think the 9.5. So they're a game behind the Hornets.
Just one game. Yeah,
it's just a game. Like and the roster is solid. Everybody's sort of back to a healthy ways of playing basketball. I don't know. It's out of all the teams that we're sort of looking at and going, they could be going one. I think they're the one that are going to take the biggest leap. They're not. They shouldn't be 8th. They should be again top 3.
Yeah.
But again, they're too far from the top 3, so 4th. It makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So another trade we haven't mentioned, I think, is next. Yeah, another trade we haven't mentioned is the Hawks trading Rondo for Lou Williams, 2nd round pick via Portland, and a 2027 2nd round pick from the Clippers as well, plus cash considerations. So they traded away Rondo, brought in Lou Williams, who can come in and bolster the scoring on that bench when Trey sits. Where do you think the Hawks finish?
I don't know, man. It's such a weird one. Rondo never does shit in the regular season, so it's almost like you go for your Williams for free. I don't know where they're at right now. The Hawks, they're 6, 23 and 23, 500. Okay. I'm thinking they'll stay. Because I'm a defeatist, I think they might take a leap over the Knicks and finish 5th. I don't know. They remain unchanged. Okay. I think they've kept Collins, right?
Yeah,
who was supposed to get traded. And he's just so freaking good. They should play a little bit more through him. Yeah, 6th or 5th. I think that they're right
around where they are. Yeah. And I think I would agree. Yeah, I think before the season, that's where I had them finishing. I think Lou Williams is an upgrade on Rondo, especially in the regular season. And again, you're banking on Rondo doing something that he did last year, a year older.
Exactly.
You're taking that risk, and I think Lou Williams actually fits that backup role a little bit better than Rondo, because they do just need scoring whenever Trae Young sits. That offense stagnates, and hopefully Lou Will can bring that to them back home in Atlanta, back where the wings stop happened.
I think that was a really smart trade from them, because they didn't lose anything, just got somebody who could score buckets, and that's it. I mean, like they started off so badly this season, and they just managed to claw their way back up to in the standings. So I guess they might be a pain in the ass in the playoffs to play against. I think you have
all right. We have. I'm trying to find the trade now.
Do you want to move west? Is that what you're looking for?
No, I just wanted to quickly do 2 more in the East. The Sixers got George Hill. Brad Zekas was also part of the deal. The Knicks got Terrence Ferguson out of the 3-way. Vincent Poirier rights to Emir Przic. Yep, that's what we're going with.
That guy. Yep.
A couple of 2nd round picks, and the Thunder got Austin Rivers and Tony Bradley in a couple of seconds. So they didn't get Lowry. They got George Hill. Do you think that affects where they finish at all right now? Currently top of the
top of the East still, right? Yeah. I don't know. The thing is, I didn't see where Lowry could fit in on the Sixers. I don't know if
you just move Simmons off the point. You just say he's not a point guard, and Simmons
should be a power forward.
You can play him at power forward now. You play him and Harris at the forward spots, and you have Embiid at center. You play Lowry as your starting one, and then you bring in either one of the young guys to play the two, or Korkmaz or whatever. You just fill that gap. You'd be a bit thin on the wing. You could start Thibault if you wanted to at that point, to keep the defense strong, or you put in one of the shooters, and you go from there. And I think he would have been a great fit, but it was just getting to that number. They would have had to get rid of a lot of depth.
Yeah, exactly. I think they would have to give up a lot to get Lowry in. I don't know, man. This is one of those trades I was looking at. I was like, does that change anything? Does that make anything better?
Right.
I mean, it's one of those I almost have no opinion about it.
Right.
The only thing in my opinions was about is what the Knicks got. I know you're talking 76ers, but they got Ferguson and Poirier, and then they waived both of them.
Right.
Hey, give us your stuff.
Yeah. So they traded away. Who was it? Rivers was your player, and
yeah, Rivers.
Yeah.
Who's also getting waived, I think, by the Thunder.
Oh, okay. I wonder who needs a guard.
The Sixers
somewhere.
No, but again, going back to the Sixers, I don't know, man. I don't know if he moves the needle in any direction. I mean, George Hill is still a very good player and
solid player.
I don't know, man. It's again like trying to think about it. It's like, does that make the Sixers better? What did they give up in like not much, because they all like
not much,
literally end of the bench players. So
yeah,
guess they won that one.
George Hill? Yeah, they did. Yeah. He's the best player that got moved. So yeah, they did win that one. So not much changed there.
No, they'll still be top of the East. I think there's not much. They've not lost much. They've gained George Hill, which will help you in the playoffs. And that's it. I mean, that's fairly straightforward, that one.
And then we can use this one as our East-West transition. Norman Powell got traded from the Blazers to the Raptors. Sorry, from the Raptors to the Blazers.
Yeah. And
Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood went the other direction. So the Raptors are down in 11th place right now. Do you think the acquisition of Rodney Hood and Gary Trent Jr., so a bit of wing depth, is enough to sort of push them back up and into the play-in tournament?
Possibly. But again, the Raptors, they've been so destroyed by COVID and injuries and stuff. So it's almost, they add a little bit of depth, so that will definitely help them. And again, what are they? They two wins back from the Bulls. So it's possible, but I guess it depends on how injuries. If the injuries are still playing a factor in this, but also they do seem to have a lot of issues within the team. I think I don't know if you've seen the Siakam
blow up.
And it's not the first time. Like I think it's happened a couple of times during the season. And I think Siakam, again, a good YouTube video on Siakam. That was the guy was doing an analysis of the way he plays, and maybe he's found his limits this season, I think, and hence why he's maybe frustrated by a bunch of stuff that maybe he's being found out by a lot of other teams that
absolutely
like he's bringing a lot of the energy on the court, but he's also sometimes it feels like he's getting confused, or you see his move in the paint, like he's always going for the spin and then trying to finish it, spin it and try to do something. But
it's predictable.
So that's not helping. I think the Raptors' issues is always deeper than we think. So it's good on them. They got Gary Trent Jr. is a good player, and Rodney Hood is certified solid. So you do bring in, and in the East is so tight that could well do the job for them getting in the 10th spot. I think 11th or 10th. Yeah, they could well do it. It depends on Vucevic and the Bulls. Depends how that gels.
Yeah,
really, more than them. I don't think it depends on them integrating those two guys. I think it depends on how the Bulls integrate their guys, and then that'll you'd move the needle up or down for the Raptors in terms of if.
Yeah, it is a tough one because it's 2 games to the Bulls, but it's 4 games to the Pacers.
Yeah.
So the chances of someone other than the Bulls falling out is pretty slim. Yeah. But then
and they lost Powell. Powell is one of the he was having a great
really
season.
good. Yeah, having a really good season.
I mean, I know we moved to the West, but like low-key, that was one of my favorite moves. That one, the Blazers being Powell.
Let's go straight there then. So we have, Powell going the other way. How do you think that affects the Blazers standings?
Where are they at right now? Let me get my stuff. They're
six in the West, tied with Denver.
They're a game and a half behind the Lakers.
And what's that? 2.5 games ahead of the Dallas Mavericks.
Yes. No, 3.5 games ahead. You said 2.5 or 3.5? Yeah, 3.5 games.
Oh yeah, you're right. 3.5. Yeah.
So I think that they're well in that pocket where they end between 4, 5, and 6. I think it's they're very much like, who was it on the East? Like I think we're talking about the Heat or the Hornets. I think they're sort of the equivalent of them. I think they've kind of been left alone by they don't have that many injury issues this season. Like the last couple of seasons, there's always been a lot of injuries with them.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of
well, they're getting players back now. I think it's the bigger thing. I think Nurkic is back. CJ McCollum's back.
Yeah, he's back. But Powell's been having the best season of his life statistically, I think, this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can add somebody of that caliber to your team, I don't even know if has he played already with the Blazers?
Yeah. They played against Toronto, ironically enough.
Okay. Oh, hang on. Oh yeah. Okay. 27 minutes, 13 points, 3 rebounds. Yeah, I guess he's gotta get used to it. But he's just a great addition. He's definitely an upgrade for them.
I think so.
And the thing you can always argue with the Blazers is that they always had a problem with their depth, and as soon as you open up the bench, they will start paying the price for it.
Yeah, and they had a lot of players, but they weren't necessarily the best of players. Yeah. And that's what I felt. They weren't necessarily complementary to CJ and Dame. And I think what they needed to do was put a couple of them together to get an upgrade at a certain position, and they've done that here.
And they needed a shooter. They needed somebody else to score points on the Blazers. I mean, there's always been that issue that they're over relying on Lillard and McCollum. So and the guy's super. What's the word? Efficient. Like his shooting is crazy. I think he's shooting almost like, what was it, 50% overall. Like almost 50%, and then 40. I think I would say between 43 and 45 something for 3. So it's definitely a great thing. You add that kind of caliber player to your roster. So there's nothing. I don't think there was any downside to their trade for them. Rodney Hood is Rodney Hood. He does what he does. But Gary Trent Jr., it's a bit.
He can get hot sometimes, but he's not always hot, right?
What you traded away is like you said, like Gary Trent is not consistent, and Rodney Hood is Rodney Hood, and you traded that away for somebody who's going to constantly give you those 15 points, 20 points a game on a good efficiency, on a good percentage. So it's a win-win for them. But again, in terms of standing, they'll stay there 5th or 6th. I think that's right where they belong.
Yes. Again, I'll agree. There's a chance that the Lakers fall behind them, which would allow them to bump up to 5th, along with the Nuggets bumping up. Where were we? In the West. We already mentioned Aaron Gordon going to the Nuggets. They're tied with the Blazers right now. How do you see this addition changing their standings?
For the Nuggets,
I do think they're in 5th place, tied with the Blazers. I do think they managed to catch and overtake the Lakers, at least temporarily, while the injuries kick in. They are 3 games back from the Clippers.
a bit far. That
yeah, and then as we said, 3.5 games from the Mavs. So
I mean, the Lakers, it all depends on James and how long he's going to be out for. But if he carries on that, if we're talking weeks of no LeBron James, then yeah, definitely, I think the Nuggets. And the funny thing is, the Nuggets getting Gordon is like that's a perfect spot for him.
Yep.
They're always trying to get him to be the number one option offensively. Like I don't think he should be. He's nowhere near that good to be that guy. And then he's playing with Jokic. Like the only thing he needs to do now is just cut to the basket. He'll find you.
And he's got the athleticism to finish. Yeah, he's the perfect spot. And he's shooting really well this year. He's shooting over 40% from three. Which again, if you're spotting up in the corner, like he took in his first game, he took a wide open corner three just because of the attention that Jokic and Murray draw. Yeah, he's in the perfect spot, as you said. I think he also would have been perfect in Portland.
Also,
if he'd end up there, he would have been great with them.
I think even more so on the
Celtics
Nuggets
as well.
I think on the Nuggets even more so. I think he needed a great passing big with him because usually that 1-2 punch of two bigs together, if one is a great passer and the other one is usually a good finisher, a good dunker, that's recipe for disaster for the other team. Like I've seen it so often, and like especially when you have Jokic, that is like one of the greatest passing big we've seen
ever.
You know?
Yeah. They ran a 4-5 pick and roll where Jokic was the ball handler, and it ended in a dunk.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I would have. I don't know if I would agree with him like being in a good spot for like imagine Gordon on the Celtics. Like would that have been like how would you see Gordon playing? I don't know.
He would provide a little bit more of secondary ball handling again, which they need. He's another good ball mover. He's another defender. Basically, he comes in and he fills the role that Gordon Hayward had last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a bigger body than Fournier is, right? So
absolutely.
he provides that more versatility on defense. And then again, he's another person that can just pick his spots. He won't be relied on to score a huge amount. And he can play off of Tatum and Brown. So less so in a sense of being utilized by Jokic, right? But still valuable in the sense that they get what they need in their wing depth. And a player to plug their holes. Like I think, do you remember at the start of the season, I was like, they need like a Draymond Green.
Yeah,
like someone just to glue things together and knit things together nicely, and that's what I think he would have given them.
Going to the one thing that made me laugh though, Gordon choosing the number 50. Did you see the entire story?
I didn't see that. Obviously it's a dunk contest, right?
Yeah. So the funny thing is that for the last couple of years, like he's been saying, "Oh yeah, shit, I don't want to be known as the guy who is just a dunker." That every single occasion he finds, he's just bringing it back to him getting 50s and not winning it. Yeah. I'm like, dude, come on. And again, shout out to the Not Dunk podcast, but like they were talking about how he's actually got a documentary about him not winning the slam dunk contest.
Oh, come on, man.
A documentary, man. Not a rap song like which is 2 or 3 minutes long. No. A fucking documentary of an hour and a half long.
That is nuts. Oh my gosh.
It's awesome.
I wish I didn't know that.
No, you know. I ruined it for you. I ruined Gordon for you.
So in the same region, we have the Mavs getting JJ Redick and Nicola Melli. From the Pelicans for James Johnson and Wes Iwundu, a 2021 second and some cash considerations, baby.
Money.
Do we think
that's a cool trade, though.
This moves the needle at all? They're a half game ahead of the Spurs. Do you expect them to be able to catch? Well, I guess we've kind of said where they are.
I don't know, man. The Mavericks this season, they're like the Celtics of the West in a way. And let me explain this. It's like, again, they should be higher, but they're not. And at times they're tragic, and at times they're really good. And that's what the Mavs are doing this season. It's like sometimes you play them and like, how can they not be top 3 in the West? How can it not be top 4 in the West?
Yeah.
You look at them, sometimes it feels like it's complete, everything's broken, everything's a mess, nothing's working properly, and then next game they just blow out anyone. It doesn't move, like getting JJ Redick and Melly. Yeah, because you're giving shooters around Doncic, so he'll find you, and especially somebody as lethal as Redick, that could be a good combination. But damn, there's so much not going in the right direction for the Mavs. I don't know if that was the right answer.
Yeah.
To get Redick, and then you lose James Johnson, which was again solid guy, not the guy. I don't know if he moves the needle. That one.
I don't think he does, but I think what they did was they took a step in the direction of last year.
Yes.
Where last year they were all offense and no defense, and then in the off season they sought to push things the other way by getting rid of Seth Curry and bringing in defenders in James Johnson and Jason Richardson. And I think they're trading away Johnson for Redick takes one step back in that direction.
In the previews, when I again keep going back to that, when I talked about it, and I was like, yeah, they're trying to fix the issues of last season where they were scoring bunches, but that didn't translate into wins or winning titles. And then what they went with is that, let's try to fix those issues so we have a good defensive base, and then we can maybe get a good shot at the title or a good run in the playoffs. Turns out they destroyed everything and it didn't work out. And now they went, fuck it, let's just run it back again and let's score as many buckets as we can. So yeah, in that aspect, you're right. And they're going back to what they knew and what they were doing well last season. So let's see if it pays off. Let's see if that pays off. I don't know if they'll get them up higher up in the standings. I think where are they now? We said 7th. 3.5 games back from this. I think they won't slip further down. I think like the Spurs now giving away Aldridge and not getting slightly better. Yeah. I think they're saved from the Spurs having a comeback. Maybe the Grizzlies could be a threat. The Warriors, maybe. No, I think 7th is right. Well, they'll end up.
And then the last team, we'll go with the Clippers. As we said, they got Rondo. That's what they wanted. This one, I know we've been talking about the regular season, but I feel like the Clippers can't do anything in the regular season to impress us or change our minds about who they are. So do you think trading Lou Will for Rajon Rondo makes them more of a threat in the playoffs?
Yeah, because you're getting playoff Rondo. I mean, straight away, that's 25% more chance of winning the playoffs right there. getting the title. What are they now? Yeah, 32-16. Okay, so they're half a game behind the Suns. And like you said, in the season, like this, and that's the thing with those Clippers, is like I don't expect them to finish first at all. I think I expect them to finish second or third. But for the playoffs, is that changing anything? I don't really know. That's the thing, is this Clippers team is still a mystery to me. I think they're better than last year. Funnily enough,
you do.
Yeah. Okay. I think they're more well-rounded. I think what they have on the court makes more sense to me. And again, Homer, but like bringing Batum, for example, is something like he's not the player he used to be, and he's not a guy who's going to score 15, 10, even 10 a game, but like he's somebody that will glue and gel everything together, and he's a smart player. And that's the sort of vet player that we're missing last year. Or there's some I don't know, last year they were a bit like the some sort of Western bad boys team, like trying to be the Pistons, like 80s, 90s Pistons, trying to be the bad boys in the playoffs. And I was like, that's not what I want to see from the Clippers. This season, I don't know. I don't know. I think it comes down to injuries. Again, the West, it all comes down to how is LeBron going to come back? When is he going to come back? And so getting Rondo, does that change anything? I don't know. I personally, I don't think it does change anything. Because I don't know how many minutes they're going to give Rondo. I don't know. And losing Lou Williams, okay, yeah, that's a bunch of points that are now disappearing from your bench. It's a weird one. This one, it's a weird one because you traded two players that the complete opposite to
very
each other.
different. Yeah, very very different players. And watching Rondo last year in the playoffs, he did make a difference when he did play. Lakers didn't have him for the first round, and then he returned against the Rockets. So he had a few high profile picks of of Harden, and irritated him a bit in that series. And then he played excellently in, I think it was game 6 of the finals as well. Somewhere else in there, we got a Rondo game, but there were also times where he wasn't playable. Like I think one of those games that the Lakers lost in the finals, it was him that just wasn't moving the needle. He wasn't doing what we expected him to do as a floor general. So he as much as we saw those highlights, those high highs that you get with playoff Rondo, he wasn't consistent in the playoffs. And then again, he's a year older. What he does do at least is make them smarter. He makes them a smarter team, and that is very valuable. I think that's what would have actually been really valuable for the Hawks going into the playoffs, having a veteran with such a huge breadth of knowledge would have definitely helped them in their first playoffs as a team. Will that be the difference for the Clippers? Maybe it's him just giving up the secrets, right? Like they played against the Nuggets. There might be some things that he knows that he saw last year that would help them in that series.
I think to me the one difference is that they're getting Rondo in the locker room, and we know that historically Rondo is not one of the easiest character to deal with in your group. He can go both ways, right? He can go like absolutely be loved by everyone.
Yeah, I mean, he is a different dude, but he's actually, when you look at the situation with the Bulls, when he stuck up for the young players against Jimmy Butler and Dwayne Wade, and then he also at the Lakers was, as you said, beloved by the team, and the Lakers, like everyone on the Lakers, said that they had the best chemistry that they've had in their careers. So he's been liked the last few places he's been.
In that case, let's rephrase that. I think the Clippers losing Lou Williams, because Lou Williams is one of those guys that's been there forever, right?
Yep.
And I think he's very much loved by everyone.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so.
So losing that, and again, Rondo's pretty much played with everyone in the league, so he's well known for who he is. But like when you lose somebody that's big as Lou Williams from your roster, and how is the team going to, especially your leaders, how do they respond to that? Was it something that was talked about in private before? Like, was it something that came out of nowhere in terms of trade? I don't know. If it comes out of nowhere, maybe your big names are like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we trading Lou Williams? We love the guy. He's giving us 20 a game. What's going on?
And Lou wasn't happy about it, so I wonder if it was a bit of a surprise to him.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, we will see. Quick fire question. No thinking, just answer.
I never think, so go on.
Are the Nuggets now the favorite in the West?
Oh, no.
Oui ou non? Oh,
no.
Okay.
I still put the Jazz up there because the Jazz are just freaking solid, and the way they play basketball. Yeah,
French.
Dude, go back. Go.
That's all I hear. French.
the Gobert is being a monster this season. I think it's the best basketball he's played ever.
All right. But
they're just well-rounded.
You wait for Lillard or the Mavericks or the Warriors to get the 8th seed, and he's having to guard Lillard, Doncic.
Well, right now it's the Spurs. Okay, right now it's
Curry.
The Spurs. It's fine.
It's fleeting. These things are fleeting. Things can change quickly. They change on a trifle. Because that's all it takes is a bad matchup, and bye Gobert.
True.
You have to pull him. All right. So we'll wrap things up there. Thank you for listening as always. Um, thank you if any of you tuned into our live show,
Yay.
our live stream watch along. We'll be doing that again in the future.
Yeah, that was fun. I liked it.
That was hella fun. As always, remember to like, share, subscribe, and review the podcast on whatever platforms you listen to. 5 stars, please. Any feedback, send it to our socials at Grit and Grime Pod. I have been David Sagoe. You have been Thomas Arnal.
Indeed.
And we have been the Grit and Grime Basketball Podcast. But now we're out.
Bye.
Bye.